There are three major developments that just moved forward in Arizona, and on their own, they sound routine, but together they answer a much bigger question. So we're gonna be walking you through what was approved, why it matters now, and what most headlines are actually missing. And by the end, you'll be able to answer one simple question better than almost anyone else. Is this real growth or just noise? So we'll be breaking down three developments: a massive new master plan community in Goodyear, a manufacturing investment tied directly to the power grid, and a light rail decision that shows how politics actually shape infrastructure. So let's start with the one that looks the biggest on paper. So the first development is called Rio 1900, and on paper, it's enormous. So the Goodyear City Council just approved a general plan amendment and rezoning for just over 1,900 acres near Estrella Mountain Regional Park. And this approval happened on the 26th, and it allows Harvard Investments to move forward with one of the largest master plan communities in the West Valley. Now, there are three things that you need to understand about this project, and we'll walk through all three of them. First is the size and mix. So Rio 1900 allows for up to 5,762 residential units. That includes large lot estate homes, standard single family homes, multi-family apartments, but it's not just housing. The plan also includes 7 land use districts. You've got open space, civic use, estate residential, village neighborhood, urban neighborhood, commercial activity centers, and a potential resort district. Now, the largest portion, which is about 1,300 acres, is dedicated to village neighborhoods. Then another 570 acres go to higher density urban neighborhoods, and roughly 300 acres each are set aside for commercial and resort uses. Now, this isn't accidental. It's being designed to function like a self-contained town. Now, the second thing you need to know is the timeline, and this is where most people actually get it wrong. So here's what isn't happening soon. According to Brian Greathouse, the attorney that's representing Harvard Investments, says construction is expected to begin in 2027, with the first homes being delivered around 2029. Now, that timeline was stated publicly during the city council meeting on the 26th. So when you hear approved, don't translate that directly to bulldozers tomorrow. This is going to be a long cycle project. And then the third thing you need to know is who's behind it. So Harvard Investments isn't new to this area. Back in 2021, Harvard Investments, in a joint venture with Toll Brothers and Verde Partners, actually acquired the 20,000 acre Estrella master plan community for $212.5 million. Now, Estrella already has houses, thousands of families. It includes lakes, trails, clubhouses, and resort-style amenities. And it's still being built out. Now, Rio 1900 sits right next to it, so this isn't a speculative land flip. It's more of a continuation strategy. Now, here's the key shift. See, Rio 1900 isn't just adding homes, it's about where the next wave of West Valley growth is being directed. Now, there are actually three implications that matter the most. First being growth is being pushed south and west. So this project actually sits near the Gila River corridor, an area that regional leaders are increasingly focused on revitalizing through the broader Rio Reimagine initiative. Now, while Rio 1900 isn't officially part of that multi-city project, its location aligns perfectly with that vision. And that's probably not a coincidence. Then second is the design is lifestyle first. So the project actually emphasizes preserving desert landscape, outdoor recreation, and a promise that every resident will be within a 5-minute walk of a park, trail, or open space. Now, that's not just planning language, that's targeting a very, very specific buyer profile. And then third, this just sets the tone for the next decade, because once a project of this scale gets approved, everything nearby recalibrates: land values, infrastructure planning, commercial interests. So Rio 1900 is actually a signal to the market that this area is now officially next. Now, if housing is the long game, power is the bottleneck. And that brings us to the second and maybe the most important development in this roundup. So if Rio 1900 is about where people will live, ERMCO is about whether those places can even function. And on the 21st, the Electric Research and Manufacturing Cooperative, ERMCO, announced a major expansion into Arizona. Now, this one didn't get as many flashy headlines, but structurally, it might be one of the most important developments of all three. Now, ERMCO is opening a 566,000 square foot manufacturing facility in Waddell, which is about 30 miles west of Phoenix. Now, the facility will focus on 3-phase distribution transformers, begin foundational work in 2026, and hopefully become operational by 2027. Plus, create more than 500 jobs. And what's crazy is this actually marks Armco's first manufacturing expansion west of the Mississippi River. And that detail matters more than it actually sounds. But let's pause here for a second, because if you don't understand transformers, none of the growth headlines actually make sense. Kind of like how you can build highways, but without gas stations, cars don't actually move. Distribution transformers convert high voltage electricity into usable power for homes, businesses, factories, and everyone's favorite, data centers. And right now, the US is actually facing a serious transformer shortage. So utilities across the country are dealing with aging infrastructure, rapid urban growth, data centers, semiconductor fabs, and of course, electrification of everything from vehicles to HVAC. Now, Armco president and CEO Tim Mills said in the press release that this expansion is about more than building a facility, it's about building the future. Our goal is simple: power the grid and power progress. So you're probably thinking, why was Arizona actually chosen? Now, there are actually 3 reasons that Arizona won this facility, and Armco put it pretty clearly. First being proximity to Western customers. So most of Armco's facilities are east of the Mississippi. Now, this Arizona location will cut transportation time, reduce logistic costs, and improves delivery reliability for Western utilities. And then the second is workforce and business climate. So Arizona just offers skilled labor, workforce development programs, and a business environment that's attractive to advanced manufacturing. And the third reason is strategic alignment with tech growth. Now this is where it gets interesting, because in January, there was an interview on KJZZ where Tim Mills explicitly connected the Waddell facility to Arizona's semiconductor expansion. So he said transformers produced there could be used directly by those manufacturing firms as they're building places to build semiconductors. Now that's not abstract, that's TSMC, that's data centers, that's everything driving Arizona's energy demand curve upward. And what's really crazy is this project has actually received unusually broad support. And just a few examples from the January statements. Governor Katie Hobbs said the facility would strengthen our energy grid and create hundreds of new jobs for Arizonians. Senator Mark Kelly emphasized that it would create good-paying jobs and support reliable power. Christine Mackey, the CEO of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, noted that the 3-phase transformers are literally powering economic development across the United States. Basically, their acknowledgement that without grid capacity, growth stalls. But here's the real takeaway. Housing projects can wait, transit projects can be delayed, but power infrastructure can't. So Armco's expansion is a bet that Arizona's growth is real, energy demand will continue rising, and the state intends to support advanced manufacturing long term. So this is foundational, which makes this third development especially interesting because it just shows where growth slows down, not because of demand, but because of politics. So on January 28th, just after midnight, the city council voted 7-2 on a decision that reshaped the city's transit future. They chose to prioritize a 10-mile light rail extension along Indian School Road, connecting Midtown Phoenix to Maryville, while at the same time, they actually abandoned the long-planned capital expansion route, often called CAPEX or CAPEX. So here's what changed. Originally, Phoenix planned 2-phase western expansion, a shorter route near the state capitol complex, then a longer extension along Interstate 10 to the West Valley. But back in 2023, Arizona lawmakers actually passed a law banning light rail within 50 yards of the Capitol. Now that law didn't kill the project outright, but it definitely created some legal risk. And then in January, that risk finally came to a head. So in a letter sent to the city council from the Senate president and House speaker stated, "We are united in opposition to any new light rail extensions," saying light rail is costly and inefficient. Now that letter was actually referenced repeatedly during the city council discussions. Now despite assurances from Governor Katie Hobbs, delivered through her budget director Ben Henderson, that she would provide political and legal cover, Henderson wrote that the governor would not allow legislators to frustrate the voters' will. But the council didn't want to take the risk. So here's the trade-off. By pivoting the Indian School Road, Phoenix actually delayed the light rail service to the West Valley, forfeited a near-term opportunity to apply for major federal funding, and avoided years of legal and legislative battles. Now, supporters argued the Indian school alignment would spur economic development, connect young people to jobs and education, but those who oppose, especially business owners, feared construction disruption. And those fears weren't hypothetical. They were based on recent history. And to be fair, this hesitation isn't irrational. Large infrastructure projects don't just reshape cities, they disrupt livelihoods in the short term. For small businesses, timing can matter more than long term upside. And for elected officials, avoiding economic harm today can feel more urgent than unlocking growth 10 years from now. An example of this is the South Central Extension. Some businesses actually reported revenue losses exceeding 40% according to prior reporting from Arizona Family back in 2025. So this decision wasn't about rail versus no rail. It was about which conflict the city was willing to absorb. And what this tells us is this isn't really a transit story, it's more of a governance story. And it shows infrastructure doesn't move at the speed of demand, it only moves when everyone actually signs off. So Phoenix didn't reject growth, it chose a path that minimized immediate conflict, even if it delayed long-term expansion. So when you take a step back, here's what these three developments really tell us. Arizona is growing, but growth isn't uniform. It moves fastest where land is available, infrastructure is scalable, and political resistance is low. So Rio 1900 shows us where people will live eventually. ERMCO shows us what must exist first for that growth to even function. And the light rail just shows where growth slows down when politics intervene. So if you want to understand where the future of the West Valley is headed, don't watch the headline. Watch power, land, and law, because that's where the real decisions are actually being made. And I'm Brad Armstrong, a local realtor, and we stay on top of what's happening around the valley so you don't miss a thing. So subscribe for more updates just like this.